Hi, everybody. It's a Monday, March 23rd, and there's a lot to talk about today. And today, Donald Trump is basically all over the place today. And, he's putting ice in the airports and he's threatening to destroy power plants and he's basically holding the country hostage until he gets what he wants with his Save America Act. And here's the thing Donald Trump create excuse me, Donald Trump creates these problems. And instead of fixing these problems, he's either creating more problems, making the problems worse, or asking other people to bail him out of these problems. And the reason for that is very simple. Donald Trump doesn't know how to fix these problems. And he's desperate. He knows he's losing the war. He knows he's earning the war. And today, the first thing this morning when I woke up, he came up with this. He announced to the entire world on Truth Social, we're in negotiations with Iran, we're talking to Iran, and negotiations seem to be going well, and they've been very productive. There's only one problem with that. Iran responded to that by saying no such talks are taking place, not even from a third party, not even from an intermediate person, not one person, no one. And it's a sad day in democracy when you're siding with the enemy and agreeing with them. Because the minute Donald Trump announced that, guess what happened? Oil goes down, stock market went up, like really up. And then when Iran made the announcement 25 minutes later by saying it never happened, guess what? The stock market went back down again and oil went back up. So not only is he doing an illegal war, but Donald Trump just committed a federal crime by manipulating the market so that he can gain from it and get more money from him and his friends. That's basically what it was. Because Donald Trump is losing the war, but he can't admit that he's losing the war, so he's doing everything he can to try to get America on his side. And again, it's a sad day when you have to go with the enemy and say, hey, wait a minute. There's nobody talking. We have no diplomatic relations going. Nobody reached out to us and said, let's talk. And I'm going to believe Iran on this. I'm going to side with them because Donald Trump is a pathological liar. And he's saying everything he possibly could. And then, and then he says, we're sending ICE to the airports. I order them not to wear the masks, but it's ripe for deportations because many illegals are there. He finally said the one thing that the Democrats have been asking for, which is no masks on ICE. Why is he suddenly changing his tune? Why is he suddenly saying ICE agents are ordered not to wear masks in the airports, but they should wear them everything else? And when the Democrats said, we will fund ICE with reforms, one of them is to keep them unmasked, Republicans said, nope, sorry. So this is exactly what the Democrats want. And by the way, there was a deal for the TSA, not ICE. Both Republicans and Democrats agreed to a deal to fund Homeland Security with TSA, but not for ICE. And guess what? Donald Trump said no. Unless it includes the SAVE Act, I do not want this on my desk. And he's not telling you that. He just keeps saying we're blaming the Democrats for this. But you're blaming the Democrats. But I have a question for you. Who the hell is running this country? Who's controlling both houses? Sorry, who's controlling both the House and the Senate? Who is in control of the White House? So You want to blame Democrats? Okay, so I got this. Why was the last government shutdown we had was also under Trump? How come we didn't have any shutdowns under Joe Biden or under Obama? Why is it only under Trump? It seems like a Republican thing here. You want to blame Democrats? Fine. You want to lie to the American people? Fine. But at the end of the day, who's running Washington? Who the hell is running Washington? Look, if you don't want the job, then we'll find somebody. Then we'll invoke the 25th, and we'll find somebody who actually knows what it means to be a leader, who knows what it means to be the president of the United States. Simple as that. And gas prices are now up, and Republicans are bitching. All the MAGItes are bitching and saying that when the gas prices were up by Biden, they were bitching about when gas was up by Biden too. Remember that. But gas prices are now even higher by Trump, and they're like, well, it's inevitable because we have to take out Iran's nuke, so it's inevitable. So you're bitching by President Biden, and I have a point here. You were bitching when President Biden had high gas prices and how he ruined the economy. But our economy is shot to hell now with gas prices through the roof. And you're okay with that because you're justifying is, well, we need a war to destroy the nuclear weapons. Isn't that kind of a double standard of hypocritical? But here's the true fact of that. When the gas prices were high under Biden, it wasn't his fault. It was the pandemic. And everything suffered. If you remember, we had the shutdown of the country. And even Republicans are bitching about that. Even all these people, these are all the same people who are now the Trump supporters, and MAGItes who are in the cold, are the same people who bitched that New York is taking away our freedoms because they're shutting down the economy. They're shutting down and we can't do anything. Oh, I'm sorry. People's health isn't important to you because you can't enjoy your night out at the bar, or your night out at the restaurant, or to party, or can go see your girlfriend or your boyfriend. I'm sorry. I didn't realize we were all selfish. I didn't realize that you only cared about your own health, and therefore, because the governor is locking the state up, he's a dictator. He's a king. Okay, fine. We say that about Trump, and you're like, he's not a king. He's not a dictator. How dare you say that about him? So when it benefits you, he's not a king or a dictator. But if they're against you, that makes you a dictator and a king, right? Because remember, in New York they called Governor Cuomo, he's a king. He's taking away our religious freedoms. He's locking us up because he wants to control us. But Donald Trump is doing the same thing. He's like, no. Donald Trump, he's the greatest president ever. He's the greatest president ever. Donald Trump knows what he's doing. Do you hear yourselves? Do you understand what you're saying? You're trying to compare the fact that when it happened under the Democrats controlling the government, you hated it. You hated it. But now that it's happening under Republicans, you're still blaming Democrats, even though it's the Republicans that are controlling the federal government. And they're doing the same thing. You're complaining that Governor Cuomo was locking everybody up during the pandemic because he wanted to control you. And if he caught you, you'd say, oh, he's a dictator. He's a king. And now we, normal people, aka the liberals, you get angry at us because we are calling Donald Trump what he is, which is a dictator, and act like a king. And you're like, oh, you have Trump derangement syndrome. Okay. So you're okay. So you're okay with the fact that he broke his campaign promises? Because when I mentioned this on social media, People said, he didn't break his campaign promises. He's keeping exactly what he said. I said, really? Because if I remember correctly, one of his promises during the campaign was, I will not start new wars. I'm the president of peace. I will end the war in Ukraine. I will lower grocery prices. I will lower gas prices. So exactly what promise is he keeping? All of a sudden, and then when your answer says, well, Iran is a threat, so they're doing whatever. Except there was no imminent threat. This was already confirmed by the CIA director and by the intelligence director. Two people who would actually be privy to this information. And when you're saying Donald Trump knows better, well, if Donald Trump knows better, then why do you need an intelligence director? Why do you need a CIA director? There was no imminent threat, and that's been confirmed. And what people don't realize is that when you go to war, that has consequences. That has consequences. He doesn't realize the chain reaction he started. He's trying to open the Strait of Hormuz that he doesn't even control. Iran controls that. And you're making threats to say, open it up or else? Open it up or else? And when Robert Mueller died, and he said, I'm glad he's dead, like, what the fuck is wrong with you? And if I recall correctly, when people said that about Charlie Kirk, you went batshit crazy that you got Jimmy Kimmel off the air, demanded he be fired, and then demand an apology. When we all said the same thing about when we all said the same thing about Charlie Kirk, and we said, oh, we're glad he's dead, you all went batshit crazy and demanded we get off the and demanded, oh, Jimmy Kimmel needs to apologize. Oh, glad Jimmy Kimmel is finally canceled and off the air. Finally, the FCC did it. And then you say, I'm glad he's dead, and you say the same thing that you got mad about when we said it about Charlie Kirk. First of all, and he hurt innocent people. That's what you say. And how did he hurt innocent people? How did he hurt innocent people? Words matter, and people listen to your every word. Donald Trump doesn't realize people listen to his every word, and whatever he says, people agree to it. No source needed. No compassion. I'm glad he's dead because he hurt innocent people. Well, so did you. Well, so are you, Trump. How would you like it when you die? We say, we're glad you're dead. Woohoo! In fact, I actually did that. I did an experiment. I posted that Truth Social on my social media, and I wrote, "This is not becoming a president. I hope this POS moron dies very soon." And we're counting down the days. And people got offended by it. People got offended. I'm like, whoa, 1 second. You're getting offended by me wishing Donald Trump to be dead soon, but you're okay with what he said about Robert Mueller, right? You're okay with that. I essentially said the same exact thing to about Charlie Kirk, and you all went batshit crazy and said, how dare you say that about Charlie Kirk? He was a hero. And then Donald Trump says, I'm glad he's dead. He hurt innocent people. And I copy and I share it to my social media. And then and then I write about Donald Trump. I hope that POS dies soon enough. And you're going batshit crazy and say, how do you wish death on the president? We should have you arrested. How come people can't see what's happening here? Donald Trump is not a great human being. And I had this conversation with somebody yesterday who decided to say it only matters what Donald Trump does politically. Really? Why? Why is it whatever he done, 20 years ago or 10 years ago? Why doesn't that matter? Why does it matter why does it only matter what it does politically? You think I openly tell people I despise Donald Trump. And I go and I give the answers. And I say, this is why he's A, B, and C. People say, oh, he's not a pedophile. He's not a convicted felon. The Epstein files is a hoax. I said, it's a Democratic hoax. You mean to tell me that Democrats over decades and decades somehow took pictures and inserted Donald Trump into videos and all this stuff, and that's it? Are you saying that he's innocent in all this? Are you saying this war, as I said this morning about the war, I said this war is about him and his friends, and manipulating the markets is a federal crime. So to cover it up, he's creating the illusion of talks that never happen. And if talks are happening, why? Let's suppose for a second that this is true, right? Let's say for a second this is true. So how come we don't know about it? Who's doing the talks? Who's the negotiator? Who's the diplomat? How come Donald Trump lifted sanctions from Russia, but has no problem with that Russia's giving U.S. intelligence to Iran for the war, nor is he worried about them helping out Iran to fight us? Explain that to me. You're lifting sanctions off the enemy who's working against us, sharing classified intel with Iran to use against us. And Donald Trump doesn't seem to bother him. Doesn't seem to bother him. I wouldn't be surprised if Donald Trump is selling us out to the highest bidder. I wouldn't be surprised. And I asked somebody point blank, to their face, North Korea has nuclear weapons. They're already made, because they've been testing them out in the open. It's not a secret. But how come we're attacking Iran? And the answer is North Korea is not attacking us. Neither is Iran, but apparently, but North Korea has those nuclear missiles. Iran doesn't have any. And North Korea could attack us at any moment in time without telling us a damn thing. And the proof is in the pudding. And every time you post something on social media against Donald Trump, they want to call you out and say, why do you post such nonsense? Why do you post stupidity? Why can you say anything positive about Democrats? Well, first of all, why are we talking about Democrats? I'm talking about Trump. Somebody went further than that and asked me, why can't you face the facts that Donald Trump is actually doing good for this country? And I played along with that for a while. And I said, okay, if Donald Trump is doing good for this country, can you start naming me what he's doing? And they basically parroted everything that Trump was saying, and I went back and I responded and said the exact opposite, which was facts. And then at the end I said, would you like to retract your statement? I said, would you like to retract your statement? Because I can go back and share footage of Trump giving his campaign promises, and then you can answer me where those promises are. Where are those campaign promises? He said no new wars, right? Last I checked, we're in a month-old war right now that we shouldn't be in. That's and he's asking Congress for $200 billion. Okay, you can ask Congress for $200 billion, but you can't go to them to tell them you want to go to war with Iran, right? And you really think the Democrats are going to give you $200 billion? You really think they're going to give you $200 billion? No war that we've ever been in cost $200 billion. In fact, I will bet you that right now. Hold on. And here we go. World War II was the most expensive war in the United States history, both in total dollars and its overall impact on the economy. Here we go. And you have to adjust for inflation because this was 1941 to 1945. Adjusted for today's inflation, the war cost over $4 trillion to $6.1 trillion. The economic impact was, at the peak in 1945, defense spending comprised about 40%. It was a multi-theater conflict that deployed over 16 million American troops and was supported by the full weight of American industry. That last one is an actual fact, because a lot of these automobile dealers, and when they were like Ford, they ended up getting these government contracts, and instead of building their cars, they started building war stuff, tanks, weapons, things they normally wouldn't be building. So that has some. The war on terror, which was 2001 to 2021, was $8 trillion, including long-term veterans care. The Vietnam War in 2025 dollars was roughly $1 trillion. The Korean War, estimated in 2025 dollars, is $472 billion. World War II remains the most expensive single conflict in American history. Modern wars, such as the post 9/11 conflicts in Iraq and Afghanistan, have become increasingly expensive due to their long duration, reaching significant total costs when including future veterans care and interest payments, things that we as taxpayers pay. Annual defense spending in 2020 of the U.S. military budget was over $997 billion, more than 3 times the defense budget. Well, I'm not going to go into all the details here because you actually do get the gist of this. The point that I'm making here is, why would Congress spend $200 billion on a war they did not authorize, they did not approve, they do not want, and is not necessary? And if Donald Trump doesn't explain why he needs that money, and by the way, the military, the soldiers in the military should refuse these orders, because it's not a legal war, and they have no idea why they're fighting. Even Donald Trump still doesn't know why we're going. Every day the story changes about the war. Well, nuclear. Well, the regime. It's not a regime change, but we're glad. Oh, we're going to power the power. If they don't open up the strait, we're going to. Well, first of all, you can't destroy the power plants, because if you destroy the power plants, you're going to have another Chernobyl on your hands, and Donald Trump alone will be the sole person responsible for that global catastrophe. Because even today, all these years later, 40 years later, I would say, roughly, Chernobyl is still a problem. The radiation is still there. And people are still dying from it. And radiation is still leaking out from that plant. So Donald Trump is too stupid to realize that blowing up power plants is not going to solve anything. In fact, it's going to make the situation worse, where not only is Iran going to have to get involved, but so will other countries. Because think of this, it's going to genocide, because it's going to kill half the population of Iran. And it's going to and it's going to be affecting other countries nearby in the Middle East, like Lebanon, Libya, Syria, possibly Israel. And I was watching this video last night while I was in bed from Lebanon, a guy was just saying it's not our war, and he doesn't understand why Lebanon is being dragged into it. Yes, there are Iranians that live everywhere in the world, even in the United States. That doesn't make every Iranian person a bad one. And you have to understand, when Iran is bombing military bases in Qatar or Saudi Arabia, and Trump is angry, he's not angry because they're bombing the military bases in Qatar or Saudi Arabia. He's angry because he has an interest there, because he has golf courses there, he has hotels there. You remember that? Remember Qatar gave the plane, tit for tat? Donald Trump said he's putting America first. Yeah? By what? Putting us in danger? By bankrupting the country? And now he's saying, I'm going to hold the country hostage until I get what I want, which is the SAVE Act. Everybody knows what the SAVE Act really is. It's not what the Republicans are telling you it is. It's not what Donald Trump is telling you it is. Donald Trump is lying to you about it. The reason why he wants the SAVE Act, and the reason why he's pushing for it and demanding it, and threatening to hold the country hostage, is because he knows what's in there. It's all about control. He has it in his head that the election from 2020 was fraudulent. Great. Fraudulent. It ain't going to change. It ain't going to change anything. He's lying to the American people by telling you there was a deal in place. He never said. He's not telling you that. He's just saying the Democrats don't want a deal. That's a 100% false accusation. The Democrats said we'll fund ICE. Yes, we'll fund ICE, but we want reforms. And as you see, if Donald Trump's saying don't wear masks in the airport, then that's doable, right? And I saw a video earlier today where you had an ICE agent running through the airport to avoid his picture being taken, which is kind of stupid because he's on video, so that's kind of really stupid, really. And there's another video that I saw on the way home today where a lady at the airport was yelling at ICE saying, "Why are you here? You don't belong here." And she's right. Why is ICE in the air? Why is ICE there? Trump is too stupid to realize that TSA is not working because they're not getting paid. Trump is too stupid to realize that he had a deal in place. Both Republicans and Democrats agreed to it, with Republicans agreeing that they will sign off on this bill to fund TSA and DHS and work on a deal for ICE at a later date. That deal was closed. Done. Republicans, Democrats, they had a deal. Trump says, nope, not signing it. Not until we add the Save America Act and you sign off on that, and the mutilation for transgender, and I think to myself, this guy is fucking delusionally nuts. He's making he thinks states are mutilizing transgender and turning them to transgender out of thin air. This is not even, there's no basis in reality for this, but he's demanding this, and he's showing that he's misogynistic, saying men shouldn't be in women's sports and women shouldn't be. So you're misogynistic too. Like, what the fuck? Does he not watch TV? Does he not see sports? Because last I checked, men and women are playing the same sports. Did he never hear of the WNBA? Did he never hear of volleyball that men and women play? Did he not hear of baseball that men and women both play? Does he not watch the Olympics where you have gymnastics for men and gymnastics for women? Swimming? Skiing? Tennis? The first ever women's hockey team? Does he not watch? Is he not in reality? Is he trying to take us back to the Stone Age? And then accusing states of taking people and mutilizing them, turning them to transgender? Like, does that make any sense to anybody? And people are believing this shit? And you have to include it in the bill with the Save America Act? Making up things that don't even exist? The entire Save Act is based off lies. The entire thing. And Mike Scott, Senator Mike Lee from Utah, when they had that marathon thing last week, he's trying to bring up a scenario like, when you go to the airport, you have to show ID. When you go to a bank, you have to show ID. So, when you go to voting, why can't you show ID? Well, because you're already registered. When you get your driver's license or state ID, you're already registering. When you're on selective services, or I forgot the name of that, you're registering. And when you go to a voting site, they're cross-referencing who you are. And when you go to vote, they cross your name out. If you're showing up to vote, you say, what's my name? Oh, Jack Smith? Okay, Jack Smith. You check it with the signature, if it matches the address that it's on. And then, and only then, do they give you the paper to go vote in the booth. After they cross-reference it. And if you don't believe me, I'm a poll worker. I do this. And I've been voting, and I vote. So it is secure. But there was no fraud, and it's already been proven many, many times. But Trump is using manipulation and gaslighting to get his his way. And honestly, honestly, it's really, really got to stop. See, I posted something, and this was all negative comments. I posted this. We had to listen to MAGA scream Biden crime family for years with zero evidence. Meanwhile, Trump has made $3 billion since January with crypto scams, merch grifts, and family kickbacks all in plain sight. When do we start yelling Trump crime family? That's a fact. If you remember, everyone kept screaming Hunter Biden, Hunter this, Hunter that, without any evidence whatsoever. But because Trump said something about Hunter Biden, everybody was up in arms about it. And by the way, he was found not guilty. There was nothing there. And they pretty much tried to destroy him and defame him. And that's what a narcissist does. To get away from their own problems, they will find someone to blame, make up some bullshit story, and people will go with it. And the comment tonight for this was, so you only care if it's Trump? Your hypocrisy is showing TDS. Again, the meme is dumb because for years you've been screaming fake news. No, I haven't. Basically, the response I got for that was basically, fuck off. And basically trying to turn around by saying that I'm posting nonsense and everything. They don't want to hear this. They don't. And this is the definition of a cult, which is tell me you're in a cult without being in a cult. Anyway, now here's the Save Act lie. I want to point this out to you because it's very important that we understand the Save Act. It's very important that everybody understands what the Save Act is. Republicans are lying to you. They've created this fake crisis. Non-citizen voting is almost non-existent. It's, as Senator Chris Murphy said, 0.0001% of votes are more likely to be hit by lightning. Okay? Federal power grab, mandates forced nationwide, states' rights lie exposed. Disfranchising Americans, and this is true, and I'll tell you why this was important. Vets and troops are blocked from voting because if you take away the mail-in balloting, how will the troops vote? How will vets vote? Because if not every vet can leave their house because they're injured, or they're in wheelchairs, or they're very sick, or whatnot. And how will troops vote? Because by law, every American has a right to vote. Every American should vote. By law, you cannot deny someone's right to vote. No, let me rephrase it. By law, you cannot stop an American from voting. It is their right, it is our right as a citizen to vote. And if you take away that right of ours to vote, then you're basically taking away democracy. But tribal and student IDs are rejected and overseas voters are targeted, which is true. Because if I'm overseas, if I'm on vacation, right, and let's say I travel around, let's say I'm traveling and it's around October, November, right? I'm going to need an absentee ballot to vote, right? Because I want my vote counted, but I'm on vacation. Are you saying I shouldn't time my vacation? I should time my vacation at a different time so I can have the right to vote here? No. As an American citizen, I have a right to vote wherever I damn well please. If I'm on vacation and I want to vote, I have a right to go to my state's website and request an absentee ballot, which is another form of saying mail-in ballot. I have a right to do that. You don't have a right to take that right away from me. The Constitution explicitly says every American has the right to vote no matter where they are, as long as they are registered to do so. And that's what the Save America Act is. It's basically disenfranchising Americans. And not only that, what about people who have to travel to go and vote? And people do. Local intimidation with losses and penalties, unfunded mandates, and election workers threatened. If you don't have anybody working the polls, you're essentially going to have any people voting, because who's going to control it? You can't have people. You're not allowed to bring weapons to a polling site. That's a federal crime that you could be arrested for. And here you're saying ICE agents are going to go to polling sites and intimidate you to make sure you vote the way you're supposed to. No. I have a right to vote for whoever I want to vote for. You do not have a right to threaten me, to tell me vote for so and so or else, because then you're the one going to jail, not me. Because you're taking your gun and threatening me, saying you better vote for Trump or else. No. That's the complete opposite of what democracy is. Democracy means the freedom to do what I want, legal, within legal reasons. Democracy means I have a right to choose what I want to do. Democracy means I have the right to vote for whoever I please. Democracy doesn't say I have a right to vote, but only when you tell me. Then that's not my right to vote. Then you're basically threatening me to vote for somebody you want. Okay? People keep asking me. People say, oh, he probably voted. People come to me or they say to me, oh, you probably voted for Mamdani. And so I tell people it doesn't matter who I voted for. I have a right to vote for anybody I want. And they say, but he's an anti-Semite. I said, let me ask you a question. And I include myself in this. I said, nobody heard of Zoran Mamdani until he started running for mayor, right? If we never heard about Mamdani before, right? If we never heard of Mamdani before, right? So how is it you suddenly know everything there is about him? Okay? You can't suddenly know everything there is to know about Mamdani when nobody knew who he was, when he was just a person in the assembly. And all of a sudden, you're saying this, that, and the other. Why? Because Donald Trump told you to? Because Donald Trump said he's a bad man, so all of a sudden he's a bad man? Because you believe Donald Trump? Last I checked, Donald Trump's a liar. And these are the same people we told not to vote for Trump, and we warned them why they shouldn't. And now, and because you did vote for Trump, you have no credibility. So why would we listen to you? And you vote based on the issues. You don't vote because of the person. Oh, he's good for the Jews. We should vote for him. Great. He's good for Israel. Great. We should vote for him. That's all? That's all you care about because he's good for the Jews? Do you see a black person going, he's good for blacks. Let's vote for him. Do you see a woman going, they're good for us women. Let's go vote for him. Do you see somebody saying, oh, they're good for the Catholics, for the Christians, for the Muslims. Let's vote. Nobody's voting based on if they're good for your religion or not. That's idiotic. People are voting for the issues. People voted for Trump because Trump, for whatever reason, promised them all these riches and all these glories. But hang on. They all do this when they're running for politics. They all do this. This isn't something new. Mamdani's the same thing. The only difference between Mamdani and Trump is that Trump lied. And he's still lying today. Every day he lies. The guy is a fucking coward. Tells people they need to be in the army when he himself, and today he goes on another, when he himself didn't go to the army. And he's calling the people who get caught in a war cowards. Or losers. If they get killed. Hey, at least they died for something they believed in. At least they died fighting for their country. At least they'd have something they loved. What's your excuse? What is your excuse? I bet you won't put your son in the army. I bet you if Barron wants to go into the war, you're going to say, why should you? It's not your job. It's the people's jobs. No. No. Listen, my nephew just joined the IDF. My mom is worried sick. And I told my mother, you knew this day was going to come. I said, why are you stressing out and worrying about something you have no control over? And she asks me, aren't you worried? Aren't you scared? I said, of course I am. But stressing about it isn't going to change the but I said, of course I am. But worrying about it and stressing about it isn't going to change the reality of that. I said, besides, what about the parents whose kids are fighting in Iran now for no apparent reason and dying needlessly for no reason? Okay? What about people who come up from the war and they have PTSD? I said, everybody's dealing with the same situation. But worrying about it and stressing about it isn't going to change the reality of that. And I say my nephew is in the IDF because, over there it's mandatory that when you're 18, you automatically have to go, male or female. It doesn't make a difference. And they don't question it either because they want to fight for their country. And there's a whole big thing now between the Haredi Jews over there also saying, you can't go into the army because you're not going to be religious anymore. Which I think is bullshit, but that's just my opinion. And I can get into a whole conversation about this, but I'm not going to do that right now because I want to finish the SAVE Act. The next thing I did was blocking citizens. 20 million lack documents. And that's not on purpose. That's because things get lost over time. How many of us know our birth certificates are, or our social security cards, or our passports, It's like I needed my birth certificate. For whatever reason, I needed it. I had no idea where they was. I was born in 1979, okay? I used to know where my birth certificate was. Then, for some odd reason, it disappeared. I don't know where it went. So what did I do? I had to go down to the Hall of Records and pay for a new one. Because I had no choice. I needed it for something, and I couldn't proceed without it. And I got a new passport because I had to renew that, and I needed that for the same reason. But I needed a passport anyway to fly. But that's a different story altogether. And people don't just have the time to go and start searching their garage for their documents or their attic or whatnot. Maybe they don't have it anymore. Maybe it got destroyed in a fire. Maybe it got ruined. Maybe they moved and they got lost in a move. Over there, you don't know. And what about somebody who changes their name? What about somebody who gets married, but they never changed their papers over for when they changed their name? You can't, it's very easy to say something, but it's another thing to actually do. It's another thing to actually do. Because it's another thing to actually do. Because in Kansas alone, 31,000 citizens are blocked. 90% of non-citizens were U.S. citizens. Now, I don't know the story behind it because I've never been to Kansas and I don't know anybody in Kansas. So I don't know. I'm not Donald Trump and I'm not a MAGA person, so I'm not going to make up some bullshit answer to explain because I really don't know. So if anybody actually does know, please leave me a comment explaining that one. And disenfranchising Americans. Veteran troops will be blocked, as I said. Tribal and student IDs rejected. Overseas voters will be targeted, which is basically what I said before and stuff. It's not election integrity, it's voter suppression. That's what this bill is. And Donald Trump, in his wisdom mind, created this bill because he's still going with the 2020 elections being rigged. He knows he's losing, and he knows he's going to lose the midterms, and he's doing everything he can to stay in power. This is what a dictator does. Okay? Putting ICE agents in airports is what a fascist state does. That's what they do. It's only a matter of time before Trump decides to have checkpoints at the borders or military checkpoints. It's only a matter of time before we have curfews in states and cities. It's only a matter of time. But there is no. But to solve the but the problem with the TSA could have been resolved today. But Donald Trump turned it away. Said no because it doesn't have the SAVE Act included. It doesn't have the order for men and women cannot play in the same sports, and it doesn't have the transgender mutilization thing. So he wants something that has no basis in reality to be put into a law. Think of that for a second. And I want you, and I have this video for you, talking about the Iran war. I saw this last night on Substack. And I should have posted it to mine, reselected, but I was late at night and I was in bed half asleep. But I want you to hear this. I want you to hear this, and I want you to understand why she's saying what she's saying, and I want you to understand why she's angry. And I showed this to a few people in a group that were a bunch of Trump supporters, and it was just disgusting, the responses I had. So listen to this, please. I do feel bad for her and for her husband. And this is the soundbite. Which, okay, I want you to listen. I couldn't. All right, here it is.
Lives of courageous American heroes may be lost, and we may have casualties. That often happens in war.
If you voted for this,
I just want you to make sure that the language here is going to be a little bit spicy, so if you can't handle it, but it's not for the faint of heart, but you'll understand why she's speaking the way she is. So I'm going to replay it, and I'm just giving you a warning. The language is going to be explicit.
Lives of courageous American heroes may be lost, and we may have casualties. That often happens in war.
If you voted for this, I want you to know that I hate you. I mean that. I hate you. And that's not just me speaking out of fear or sadness as the spouse of an active duty service member, although I am profoundly sad and incredibly terrified right now. But I still mean it when I say that if you voted for this, I hate you. And if you know me in real life and you're watching this and you're shocked because you're thinking to yourself, well, I voted for this and I know Kendall and I know that she couldn't possibly hate me. She knows me. I want you to know it goes for you too. In fact, not only does it go for you too, I hate you twice as much as the strangers that voted for this. And you are delusional if you think that you get to look me in my eyes and tell me that you care about me while actively cheering on the man who made it very clear from the very beginning that he would happily send my husband, my soulmate, to die in a foreign country. This is monstrous. It's monstrous. They struck a school building. More than 50 little girls are dead this morning because of the man you installed in the most powerful office in the world. That's on you. And I don't know how you're going to live with yourself with that knowledge. Probably an unhealthy dose of delusion and lack of empathy for anyone else on this planet. But I can say that I don't have to live with you. I don't have to have you in my life. I don't have to have monsters in my life. And at this point, if you're still supporting this administration, you're a monster. You are a monster. You are irredeemable trash. And frankly, I do not care. The one thing I will say, I apologize to my mother for any shocked and upset phone calls she gets from people in my hometown about this video, but I'm not sorry for making it. Because I want you to know. I want you to know how deep my hatred for you runs right now if you voted for this. You.
And, you know, I feel sorry. I really feel sorry for her because her husband is in Iran. There's no reason for him to be there. And who knows if she'll ever see him again. And Donald Trump is basically saying lives will be lost to casualties of war. No shit, Sherlock. Lives will be lost casualties of war. But again, what are we fighting for? What is the end game here? Do you know? If at least the soldiers knew what they were fighting for, that's one thing. But they have no idea. They're just following orders because they don't want to be court-martialed. They don't want to be held in contempt. They don't want to be, thrown out of the military. And it's unfortunate that it's people like her. And she's saying, and she's basically telling her friends, I'd rather be alone than associate with you idiots. That if you're supporting this, then you're just like him and you can get the fuck out of my life. And you have to sympathize with her. And again, again, I probably wouldn't be in the army because I probably would fail my whatever tests they give to, to make you go to the army. But if I could, and I admit, going to war scares me. Even if I could, war scares. One of the, and I will be frank with you. One of the things that scares me the most, I'm afraid of heights. I'm definitely afraid of heights. But the worst thing that ever, the one thing that I'm actually terrified of, the one thing that terrifies me more than heights, is being put under for surgery or anything like that. That's the one thing that terrifies me the most. In fact, 3 years ago when I had a colonoscopy, I asked them nicely, please do not put me under. I do not want it. And they have to accommodate that request. If a patient is asking for it, they have to accommodate that. And they did. However, the fact was I was getting restless, for obvious reasons, that they actually put me into a comatose state, which meant I was aware of what was going on, but I couldn't move. Which is a lot different than being put under. And that is the one thing that terrifies me more than anything. And I've never told that to a damn thing. I've never told it to a damn soul. But that is the one thing that terrifies me the most. So I can't relate to what she's saying. And now they have the generals of the army telling them that war is being framed as something holy, as if young soldiers sacrificing their lives is somehow a service to God. Like, when did the army become... Like, how did we end up at this point where faith is used to justify sending people into foreign conflicts that have nothing to do with protecting American lives? This is a comment that someone wrote based on this video. She wrote, what's even more disturbing is hearing this war framed as something holy, as if young soldiers sacrificing their lives is somehow a service to God. How do we reach the point where faith is used to justify sending people into foreign conflicts that have nothing to do with protecting American lives? American soldiers should not be dragged into wars between other countries. Meanwhile, ordinary Americans are struggling, feeling ignored, overworked, and increasingly powerless under a government that seems less and less responsive to the will of its own people. How can our leaders claim the moral high ground about freedom abroad while many Americans feel their own democracy is slipping towards something more autocratic? To tell American soldiers that supporting certain geopolitical agendas is a religious duty, that idea contradicts the message that Jesus himself preached. Jesus, who was a Jew, like me, I'm Jewish, taught compassion, humility, love for your neighbor, and that all people are equal before God. And in fact, as a Jewish person, I can tell you that that's actually true. We have a saying in Hebrew, and I'm going to translate it. In Hebrew, it's called "V'ahavta l'reacha kamocha," which roughly translates means "love your fellow neighbor as you would love yourself." Okay? And as Jewish people, we forget that because we embarrass them, and I'm guilty of this myself. That we shame them, we judge them, we make them guilty. We don't make them feel we make them feel terrible about themselves. And again, I'm guilty of this too. But at least I apologize when I realize that I was wrong. I realize that I'm wrong and I apologize for it. And if you don't love yourself, how can you love somebody else? And I don't mean love as in a sexual way. I mean love as in be the person you are. Because that's who you are. That's who you want to be. And so I can relate to that concept of loving that he taught compassion, humility. Because if you don't have compassion, right? Imagine when it happens to you and nobody's there for you. And it happened to me. Many years ago, I would say about 10 years now, I was alone. I was literally alone. I was crying. I had nobody to turn to. And my sister and I don't get along, that out of spite, she literally took whatever food I had left in the freezer, because we were moving at the time, whatever. And I had to beg. I had to go on social media, and I had to beg people for food, strangers that didn't even know who I was. And I had to go on Facebook and say, can anybody feed me? I'm starving. I had like $100 to my name. And I'll never forget that. They were Jewish, but the compassion they had for me, the humility they had for me, the love they gave for me. I had enough food to last me for 6 months. And I'll never forget it, that there are still good people out there. And this was the days before Trump was president or Joe Biden was president. But this has nothing to do with who was in the office. This is to do with the fact that it took a lot of guts for me to actually do that publicly on social media and ask and beg and plead. And I was scared because I had no idea where my next meal was coming from, because I had no money and I was alone. My family didn't help me. My friends, I didn't really tell anybody what I was going through because I didn't want that help. I didn't want the pity. The only reason why I did what I did on social media is because I needed the courage to do that. I needed the courage to go on social media and say, I need food. I'm in a very tight spot. I don't want to starve and I need to eat. And people who never met me opened their homes to me. People who out of the goodness of their heart, cooked for me, asked me what I want for dinner, asked me if I could have this or that. And that is what humans are about, not who we became today. That is who we are now. When we were back then, people with compassion, people with humility, people for loving their neighbor, for loving for each other, making sure we are okay, checking up on us if they haven't heard from us in a while. That is humanity. Not what we become today. What we become today is deplorable human beings. People who only give a shit about themselves. And so you read this, you listen to this video, you watch this video, and you have to feel sorry for her. And if she has any children, you have to feel sorry for them too. Because they have a father and a husband that may or may never come home again alive. And Donald Trump doesn't give a shit. He has no compassion. He has no humility. The only person he loves is himself. He can give a shit whether you live or die. He only cares about one thing and one thing only. Me, I. Ooh, can I get money out of it? But the comment continues. He never taught that some people were more deserving of protection or sacrifice than others. That message of universal love is something Christians and Muslims alike recognize in Jesus' teachings. Kindness, generosity, and justice for all. And kindness goes a long way, by the way. and so does generosity. And that's where you get the entire pay it forward thing. And it does, and it goes a long way. And people remember that, by the way. Maybe not today, maybe not tomorrow, but down the line, by sudden chance, people remember what you did for them, and they will return the favor. And that's what pay it forward's about. And I wish that I can remember who these people were. If I can go back to my Facebook messages from all those years ago and thank every single one of them, I doubt they would remember it. And I doubt they would remember me. But that's not the point. The point is showing your gratitude and appreciation, even if it's years later. And if I could do that, I can die today knowing that I showed my appreciation and kindness, because it goes a long way. And showing kindness, showing generosity, having compassion, having humility makes you a human, makes you perfect in someone's eyes. And to continue, instead, we are watching billions of dollars flow into war, while everyday Americans face rising costs, economic strain, and uncertainty about the future. If life is already difficult for working people, endless foreign conflicts will only make it harder. Americans deserve leaders who prioritize peace, accountability, and the well-being of their own citizens, not endless wars that deepen division and drain our resources. It's time for Americans to wake up, ask hard questions, and demand better from those in power. And I want to point out one last thing, and I'm going to end with this. Is she mentioned the school bombing of the girls. And Donald Trump mentioned that. And so did Pete Hegseth. And they both gave different answers. Pete Hegseth said it's under investigation. And Donald Trump said it's Iran's fault. Not Israel's fault, not Americans' fault, but Iran's fault. The truth of the matter is, it was us. It was us. Based on the evidence I've seen, based on the videos that I've seen from different angles, it was our fault. But instead of Donald Trump taking responsibility for it, instead of Pete Hegseth taking responsibility for it, he's blaming Iran for it. That, and nobody seems to have a problem with this. Nobody has a problem with this. And the fact that our president, the leader we're supposed to look up to, the leader that Harry Truman said the buck stops here, and yet you still think he's the greatest gift to man. People think he's the second coming of the Messiah, that he's Jesus reincarnated. But you bomb a school full of girls, and they all die, and you can't even take responsibility for that. That is what a cruel and heartless piece of shit is. And yes, I will call Donald Trump for what he is. A fucking piece of shit who I hope drops dead from all that fast food McDonald's he eats. And if you take offense by that, then you can go fuck yourself. Because if I can say that, because if Donald Trump can say that about Robert Mueller, who didn't hurt a soul, he just did his job. But if you can say about Donald Trump, I'm glad he's dead because he hurt innocent people, and that doesn't bother you, but you get offended by me saying, I hope that piece of shit drops dead soon, it says a lot about your character. Because that truly means you are in a cult. And that truly makes you a terrible person. And the girl in the video is right. I hate you, I fucking hate you, and you all can join him in hell. You know why? Because that should tell you that outrage should be more than enough. That outrage should be more than enough. And I have one question for you. I have one question. When is it enough? How low does Donald Trump have to stoop before you wake up from your brainwash and say, oh shit, I can't believe I was supporting this man the entire time. How low, how much more on the bottom of the barrel does he have to go before you say, I can't believe you were all right and I should have listened? And if you can't answer that question, and you keep insisting that anybody's posting the truth about Donald Trump, and you're the one, and when you post it, and they call you, oh, you have TDS, and they tell you that you should stop posting nonsense. I even had somebody say, stop posting things about Trump. And I said, what do you mean? It's freedom of speech. I can post whatever I want. It's on my wall. I can post whatever I want. That just to show you that they're actually parroting Donald Trump. Because if they're saying the exact same thing that he's saying, I have a right to post whatever I want. You have a right to say whatever, to comment whatever you want on my wall. And that's fine. But at the end of the day, evil never wins. For thousands and thousands of years, evil has never won. The bad guys always got punished at the end. They either died, they went to prison, or they lived the life in agony. And as I said, how cruel and heartless do you have to be? And if you did put America first, America wouldn't be in the situation we're currently in. The economy is crap. People are losing their jobs. Housing market is going up. Food is not getting any lower. And Donald Trump keeps trying to figure out ways to steal from the American people. You remember that phone he was trying to come up with? The gold phone that he said people put a $100 deposit on there? What happened to that phone? What happened to that phone? I asked AT&T the other day because I was in there the other day, and I asked them, what about the Trump phone you guys were going to sell? And they're like, And no one seems to care about that. But Hunter Biden, he's guilty. He's forwarding from China. He's stealing from China. It's all projection. It's all manipulation. And at the end of the day, it's all about being a decent human being. And if you can tell me with a straight face that Donald Trump is the greatest president of this generation, then you seriously are delusional and you need help. And if you have no kindness and you have no compassion, then, like the girl in the video says, you can go fuck yourself. And I feel for this woman because her husband is in a war and he has no idea why he's there. He's there because he's doing his duty as a soldier and he's doing his duty as a citizen. But he has no idea why he's there, if you know what I mean. And when MAGA decides, and when MAGA says, oh, they're there because of this and that, I'm like, well, that's interesting. You happen to know the reason, but nobody else seems to know the reason. Congress says one thing, PSK says another thing. Donald Trump is like, well, today it's this, tomorrow it's that, and he says, I don't know. And then says, hey, NATO, hey, country, hey, allies, help us. And when they say no, he's like, fuck you, we'll rip NATO to shreds. No, you created this problem, you got yourself into it, you got to get yourself out of it. They may be our allies, and that's true, but they're not going to fight your battles for you. You started it for reasons unknown to anybody, and you finish it. But this woman is right. If you are supporting this, you are a monster, and you're not a human being. You're just like him and all those other shit for brains that are out there. And you have no compassion, you have no humility, you have no kindness, no generosity. Your heart is turned to stone. And you're not who you used to be anymore. And for that, you are a horrible human being. And for all of you out there who are this way, I can simply say, fuck you, go fuck yourself, and may you all rot in hell. For the rest of us, We have to vote blue come November in order to end this living hell that we did not ask for and we do not want.